The fish is many before, but as they build house and the place, the water can't be occupied. So the fish they're very many for inside ground. If person go out, the fish not many again.
5 years ago, Happy was catching about 10 fish a day. But now she struggles to catch more than 3. A 70% decline in her supply. This is Ogombo, a community by the waters in Lagos. Pollution and widespread land occupation are negatively affecting the population of aquatic species. And now, Happy and several other fishers are struggling to survive.
All those places where they put dirty, person not fit go that side again because the dirty, the dustbin too overflow.
With every breath that we take and every drop that we drink, we're connected to the ocean. On average, about 60% of our bodies are made up of water, an essential nutrient to the life of every cell. But when it comes to protecting the water around us, humanity has not done a very great job. Marine ecosystems are heavily affected by human activity. And here's the thing, we've always relied on our oceans for food, water, and as a route for trade and exploration. Covering about 72% of the Earth and supplying half of its oxygen, the ocean is our planet's life support system. So I'm going on a journey to find out how we can better protect Nigeria's oceans and help to sustain coastal communities.
My visit to Ogombo reaffirmed one thing, that scientists are sounding the alarm about the poor state of the ocean for a very good reason. The less we look after our environment, the harder it is for humanity to survive. To the east of Lagos is the oil-rich Niger Delta, a region that has sadly been damaged for many years to come. Illegal oil refineries and pipeline vandalism are prevalent, but decades of negligence from major oil giants is also a devastating cause. Millions of liters of oil have been spilled across this environment. Lawsuits have been filed and some settlements have been reached, but the spills continue to happen. This is Nembe in Bayelsa State. In 2021, according to the state government, about 2 million barrels of oil and gas spilled into this environment from a well operated by a Nigerian energy conglomerate, the ITO Group. The group, however, denies this figure. The Federal House of Representatives resolved to investigate this incident in June 2022, which reportedly killed millions of seabirds and aquatic species. This is a region that's desperately in need of protection. According to the UN ODC, about 60% of the fish in the Gulf of Guinea breed in the Niger Delta mangroves. Yet, the degradation of these ecosystems has decreased fish populations and increased cases of waterborne diseases like cholera and typhoid. Tunde Morakinyo is a passionate conservationist, and like many people, he's extremely concerned about the loss of mangroves in the Niger Delta.
It's quite depressing because the mangroves which are just the habitat, just on the coast, are a really, really important breeding ground for fish. And now with the cutting of the mangroves for firewood, clearing of mangroves because of urban development and because of oil pollution in particular, the mangroves in Nigeria are becoming devastated. So the fisheries of Nigeria are not only under attack by overfishing offshore, but by the destruction of the mangroves and overfishing in the inland creeks of the Niger Delta.
Far too often, beautiful creatures like manatees and sea turtles are seen chopped up or sold along the roadside. All 5 sea turtle species commonly found in Nigeria's waters are listed by the IUCN as either vulnerable, endangered, or critically endangered. Yet, these are species listed as protected under Nigeria's Endangered Species Act. To Bolaji Alonge, a Lagos-based photographer and diver, the loss of marine life is devastating.
Do you know there are places where we still have manatees? These big freshwater creatures. We used to have them all around, but there's a lot of them killing over the years, but we still have some. We need to protect these things. Once you have a place flourishing, it leads to people wanting to go to see these animals in their environment. But there's a problem to that as well, especially in Nigeria, where many people, once they see these animals, all they think about is how to eat them. If you go to parts of Lagos, I'm not going to mention where, you find crocodiles tied and sold to restaurants, and these are animals we should protect. People are beginning to complain in all these parts of Nigeria. In the villages, in the rural parts, they are complaining. Hunters are complaining now that there are less animals. We go out there, we don't see enough animals as our fathers used to see. So what does that mean? It means these animals are beginning to go.
The key question is, how do we protect Nigeria's waters? I met up with Oyerunke Adigbile, a marine biologist who spends her time working to protect Nigeria's marine wildlife. We visited the Kids Beach Garden in Lagos, Nigeria's first sustainable beach.
Nigeria's marine wildlife is severely threatening today. Marine protected areas are important in order to protect the marine species, to ensure that they do not go into extinction. Marine protected areas are areas within the ocean designated by government or other legal entities where human activities are limited or prohibited.
So marine protected areas protect ocean life. While scientists recommend that no less than 30% of the world's oceans today should be protected to conserve marine wildlife and also for the enormous benefits that the ocean provides to humans. According to the United Nations, just 8% of the world's oceans are protected today. At the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon in June 2022, philanthropic organizations committed $1 billion to help protect 30% of the world's oceans by 2030, which is roughly equal to all philanthropic finances for MPAs and habitat protection over the past decade. This is a huge development. And here in Nigeria, a country endowed with several water bodies and 853 kilometers of coastline, there are currently no formally established marine protected areas.
That Nigeria has no MPAs is affecting our waters in so many ways. One of it is unregulated fisheries, for example. Since we have no MPAs, people are able to go anywhere in the ocean to fish resources that are limited in supply. It's also affecting in terms of environmental degradation, whereby any kind of vessels goes into the water and damages the ecosystem.
MPAs encourage sustainable fishing while also protecting marine life, consequently increasing the catch of fishers like Happy.
Imagine a scenario where Nigeria's fisheries collapse. We're already facing very, very tough economic conditions. Just when you think it can't get any worse, it gets worse. The fisheries off the coast of West Africa and the fisheries off the coast of Nigeria in particular, some of the most important, some of the most productive in the world, and some of the most important. And a huge percentage of the protein that is eaten by the Nigerian population comes from our offshore fisheries.
In 2020, the federal government of Nigeria announced that it will be creating 10 new national parks. Apoi Creek Reserve and Edumanom Forest Reserve in Bayelsa State made the list, and it's been stated that these two locations would serve as marine parks. More recently, Nigeria's Minister of Environment, Mr. Mohammed Abdullahi, said that the government is working with an environmental NGO to develop a framework for marine protected areas. The National Park Service of Nigeria is involved in the process of establishing MPAs, so I spoke to the Conservator General, Dr. Ibrahim Goni.
Two of these new national parks are marine in Bayelsa State. We have the Apoi Creek Forest Reserve and the Edumenu Forest Reserve, all in Bayelsa. Mr. President has also approved and released the sum of 500 million naira for their takeoff. The Ministry of Justice is currently working on the act establishing the former national park so that the new national parks can be incorporated. And they have so far drawn a proclamation statement for Mr. President, which he will lay before the National Assembly. And when there's concurrence with the National Assembly, the federal government can now go into these national parks and take them over from the various state government.
Rachel Ikeme is the founder of the Southwest Niger Delta Forest Project. She says that Apoi and Edumanom might not be suitable MPAs as they're located inland.
Describing a place like Apoi Creek as a marine protected area can be very confusing. There are certain areas, of course, on land that are not too far from the sea. I mean, for Edumanom, it's about 30 kilometers away from the sea. Really, they can get away with describing it as a marine protected area. But the question is, should that be so?
To call an area that protects swamp forests and mangroves a marine protected area is wrong. It doesn't protect marine habitat. It protects inland habitat. If you look at the word marine protected area, neither Apoi Creek nor Edumanom qualify as MPAs. If Nigeria is serious about having an MPA, we need to have a marine protected area that includes part of the coastline and part of the Atlantic Ocean.
I voiced these concerns to the Conservator General. Here's what he had to say.
An MPA can be land or water. It depends on, and the size may even be less than 10 meters. It may be more than 100 hectares, depending on what is available to you. So when you are declaring an area as a national park, whether inland or on water, it does not matter. That is why the two areas that are declared can qualify for MPA.
If you look at the name, Marine Protected Area, marine means sea, coast, ocean. Apoi Creek is, 20, 30 or 40 kilometers inland. It is not on the coast. Apoi Creek does not contain part of the Atlantic Ocean. So it is not a marine protected area.
Controversies regarding whether it's a marine area, it's an extra habitat, and so qualifies to be a marine area or not, I think should be played down in such a way that it doesn't take away from the importance that is attached to the conservation of natural habitats and the conservation of species. Is very important to also be able to clarify these terms in this public space so that people don't get confused.
How the oil and gas industry is likely to respond to the establishment of MPAs is an important factor to consider. After all, most of Nigeria's revenue is still generated from crude oil.
the oil and gas sector can only embrace this and support it, promote it, and also anticipate being given the opportunity to invest in, moving this forward. What we have seen really is that, our water bodies have been polluted, biodiversity, that's marine biodiversity, endangered, and now that, we're moving in the right direction, creating marine protected areas, the oil and gas industry can only see an opportunity to support the government in rolling back some of the damages that, some of our activities have done.
I think one of the things that we should do is, one, do a bit of benchmarking and see what other countries have done. I mean, we take, for example, Norway. Norway has, they've been doing this for a while. And they've taken learnings from the North Sea and see how they can protect their oceans and the MPAs. And as you can see, I mean, by the coastal areas, because you have what you call the swamp and the mangroves, where most of these things really happen, actually. And to see how these things flow, but it's also looking at dedicating certain areas whereby the impact is going to be much minimum based on current flows and stuff like that.
Nigeria is signatory to international laws. Therefore, our marine ecosystems should receive a certain level of protection. There are also creative ways to protect Earth's waters that are going on all over the world. A good example is Seychelles, an island republic situated in the Indian Ocean, where a debt for nature swap is conserving the country's waters.
Debt for nature swaps give countries the room to have their foreign debts cancelled or reduced by a creditor, in exchange for the debtor making financial commitments to conservation. This is an innovative model that Nigeria can benefit from. These swaps have taken place in the past to preserve tropical forests, but the Seychelles deal is the first to focus on marine conservation, and the first to use loan capital to help finance the swap. I had the opportunity to visit the Seychelles in December 2021. Visiting a marine park and experiencing the abundance of aquatic life was a beautiful experience.
I think Seychelles has just 439 kilometers of coastline, and Nigeria has 853 kilometers coastline. That's double. So if Seychelles can tap into such opportunities, I don't know what Nigeria is waiting for, especially with the amount of foreign debt that we have. If we're able to offset some of our foreign debt for protecting our marine environment, which would be of value to us in developing the economy of the coastal people, I think is an opportunity to jump into.
I have gone diving in different parts of the world. And then what you see is like there are protected areas. These areas are areas where you can dive. There's a place in Oman, for example, called the aquarium. So people are not allowed to fish in all these places. So you get to, the marine life in these parts gets really to flourish.
Over 16,000 kilometers west of Seychelles are the volcanic Galapagos Islands, a province of Ecuador situated in the Pacific Ocean. Home to a diverse range of marine species like dolphins, sea lions, and sea turtles, these islands are a major tourism destination. Wild Aid is involved in marine protection here. I had a conversation with the founder and president, Peter Knights, on what the organization has been able to achieve and how. While approaches to establishing MPAs may differ across several island and coastal nations, there may be something to learn.
Well, the big lesson for Galapagos is it's one thing to set up a marine reserve, put it down on paper for it to be lines on a map. It's another thing to actually enforce it and make it real. And so what we've done in the Galapagos Islands since 1998, when the marine reserve was declared, is help the Ecuadorian government put the proper protection systems in there. And that means training personnel, it means having the right equipment, and actually making it a marine reserve as opposed to just lines on the map.
There are several steps to take to establish MPAs, and it begins with political will. More so, the government needs to enforce existing laws that protect marine wildlife, as species will still be vulnerable outside of protected zones. It is clear that the federal government is looking to establish the first MPAs in the Niger Delta, and to Adigbile, there is no better place to start.
In the Niger Delta, you can find dolphins, you can find whales, you can find the sea turtles in large quantities. So I believe that kind of area should have an MPA in place.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's waters and aquatic life have both received some protection based on traditional and religious beliefs. This is often not talked about or given credit. Fishing festivals such as the Argungu Fishing and Cultural Festival in Kebbi State restrict fish harvesting to specific times of the year. Several other communities exist across Nigeria that either prohibit the consumption of certain aquatic species or have harvesting schedules. These customary zones play a significant role in keeping our water ecosystems healthy, and it's widely argued that they should receive formal recognition from the government.
Traditional forms of protection are extremely important. Fisher folk for generations have recognized the importance of conserving or protecting marine resources, and they understand the fact that fish have breeding cycles, and when the fish are spawning, or when the fish are, when fingerlings are growing up, it's good to have a closed season so the fish are given a chance to grow. There are numerous communities in the Niger Delta that have closed seasons for fisheries in their area of jurisdiction. And I think if Nigeria is to establish a marine protected area, it will be very, very important to work with the local stakeholders, the local fishermen, the traditional rulers, the fishing cooperatives, so that they can play a key role in protecting these marine protected areas and ensuring that there's a closed season. Unless you have community buy-in, you'll never protect these areas.
To feeding, they affect me. So now, I don't fine. Say make I see small money, I go fit do business. Maybe I'll figure that out the money.
The hope is that through the establishment of MPAs, fishing communities can thrive once more, as well as marine and freshwater biodiversity. It may be months or years before these protected areas are up and running in Nigeria, but once established, the overexploitation and destruction of Nigeria's waters should be brought under control and hopefully become a subject of the past. Laila Johnson-Salami, Arise News.